pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, I open the public hearing, discussion of city incorporation. Yes, Mr. Larson.
You want me to?
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Don Larson. I think I've met many of you in the past at meetings of the board. I have been hired by the Board of Trustees to prepare a city charter for the City of Rouses Point. And we have been working off and on most of the summer and a little bit before, and have actually now at this point come up with a rough draft of the charter. It's still in rough form, and I use the term rough because by the time the charter gets finished through the legislative process and through all these state agencies and others involved, there'll be a lot of changes in wording and changes of phraseology and that sort of thing as far as the actual language of the charter goes. But I don't think that the actual intent of the charter will significantly change more or any significant way from what the board has decided they want the new city to look like. The city is essentially a creation of the state legislature. It pretty much is something that the local residents of the incorporators can pretty much decide what it is that they want the city to look like and what they want it to do or not to do. The important thing in terms of the legislation is that you actually have the designation as a city. Once you get the form of the government, once you get the city created, then under the state's local law powers and other powers that they have, they can refine the city locally in terms of its function, its composition of its board, that sort of thing. But once you have the city set, then it becomes a city for all state purposes and has all state benefits, functions, and responsibilities. But at the time the charter is actually adopted, the City of Rouses Point will look very much like the Village of Rouses Point. In other words, we're not increasing the size of the legislative body, the function of the legislative body. We're not taking on any additional functions other than the state court, and that's not really a new function. That's just a continuation of a function under a different title. And once the board gets settled in, then, and as a city, with the benefits that go with it, then the Board of Trustees or the City Council, whatever you want to call it, can then work to fill in the gaps as to what the public actually wants the city to do and be. But you should not notice any really significant change in terms of the functioning of the government, who you talk to, that sort of thing to get things done. The advantages will be that you will notice will be that you will not get a town tax bill anymore, and as from the state of New York, you probably would be receiving additional state revenue in terms of state aid. No one can tell you exactly what that amount would be, other than to say that in the history, New York State history regarding aid to local government, cities always received more aid than do towns, counties, or villages. So it would be assumed that they would treat all cities the same. You would also have additional sales tax authority, which you do not now have. That sales tax authority is the sort of thing that the city council must enact. It's the sort of thing where they have the option of enacting it. And that may be something they choose to do at a later point. But I think the purpose of this meeting tonight, as I understand it, is to try and update the public generally on what's been done here. We've made a very serious attempt to do something. We think we have a very workable product. But most of the input has come from the mayor, the trustees, and the village officials. And I think we would like to hear, I would like to hear some of the comments or suggestions as to what you think the city ought to look like, what it is that we ought to be doing. You know, kind of answer the questions if there are any, and then just in general have kind of an open discussion of what of what's actually happening here. It's something which hasn't happened in the state of New York for quite a while. I think the last one was about 60 years. So myself included, there are no real experts on this. Nobody really knows what's going to happen when it goes to the legislature in terms of what they're going to look for or in terms of what their criticisms or suggestions are. So we're all sort of playing it by ear. And if we're going to do it play it by ear, so it seems a good place to start is with the actual residents of the community who are affected and hear what your comments are. Now we have some handouts, some things which I prepared, which may answer some of your general comments or discussions, and you know, hand them out or just leave it here or pass it down the road here, I guess. So does anybody, who wants to open up?
Anybody that addresses the board, please give their name and residence
Yeah.
for the record, please.
My name is Arnold Beal. I'm both a resident of the village of Rouses Point and town supervisor for the town of Champlain. My main concern here tonight is to clear up some accusations that have been made and to also shed light with the village on what the town has done in the past and to help them in any way I can to understand town operation. If anyone else can care for a copy of these,
Can I have a copy?
they're right up here. Sure. Sorry, do I use the mic?
Yep.
I'm kind of hoarse.
Make sure it's on. There's a little button up there.
On the top. As we all know, we've been very concerned about lately what the town does for the village. So what I've done, I've prepared on the first sheet, you'll see, I have a comparison of 2000 and 2001. And the first comparison I used was the assessor's budget. The assessor's personal services, we pay her $34,000. Their contractual, that you all know about in budgets, is $3,400. The assessor's benefit package is $7,094. The office cost for her office is about $3,900 a year. The assessor's help that we have for reval for costs about $5,000 a year. And legal fees and appraisal costs is $8,000 a year. For the 2001 budget, that gives a total of $61,394. If you were to take that $61,394, divide that into the total assessed valuation of the town, which is $232,623,000. That would give you a tax rate of $26.39 a rate per thousand. If you were to take that figure and multiply it by Rouses Point's total assessed valuation, you come up with $94,594,000, which would give you a tax value of $24,963.35. That would be your share for the assessor's cost for the year 2001. So we do the same thing for 2001, rather. Sorry, that was 2000. For 2001, we do the same thing. And as you can see, for legal fees and appraisal costs went up this year because of the new reval that's going to be coming about. And it takes more money for legal fees and appraisals for that. But this year's budget for the assessor is $83,828. If you do the same division and multiplication, you notice that your assessed valuation is up a little bit. So the town was $235 million, not $195,000, which made a tax rate of $35.64. Well, multiplication of that by your assessed valuation, that comes up to $34,416.83. That's the village share of their cost for assessment. The total town tax rate for the village in 2001 is 88 cents a thousand. Is there any questions on that? The board? Now we go to the town programs that the village receives benefits from. You have the dog control program, which we pay $14,560 for. You have the publicity account, which is $5,000. To explain the publicity account, that is an account that's used to advertise and to enhance business to come into the area. We have elections cost, which is $5,500. We have the JCO contract, which is $15,051 for the year 2000. We have their office cost, which is $3,000. We have the landfill closure, which is $25,000 last year. We have the examining boards, which is $2,000. That's where you go for your assessment that you don't agree with. You got the examining board. And you have the veteran service. Total for that, for the year 2000, was $71,411. Doing the same division and multiplication, you come up with a tax rate of that of $30.69, which gives you $29,030, round figures. Total tax value that year of 2000 was $2.63. We do the same thing with 2001. We have a bottom line figure. You can see that it's less than what it was in 2000. It's $56,411. And if you do the multiplication and the factor there, you come up with 23.98 cents per thousand cost for that. In other words, $23,157. The town tax rate for the village of Rouses Point for the year 2001 is 88 cents. Now, you note that the service for sand was not included in this cost, because it would be hard to figure the real cost for sand. We have to research the cost of the sand pit, the purchase of that sand pit, the cost for screening that sand, the cost for hauling the sand. If you feel this is important on your formulas and if you wanted to figure, if you give us some time, we can look into this and find out what the actual cost is. Also, the town supplied gravel in the year 2001. That figure's not here. Excuse me. On your third sheet, what I've done is I've given you a comparison of all the tax rates for the town of Champlain, the village of Champlain, and the village of Rouses Point, going up our assessor. So this, kind of gives you some kind of an idea on what town benefits are to the village. I'm sure that there's a lot more that we could provide. Another thing I'd like to talk to you, it's on your next sheet. The annexation statement is the town of Champlain has never said that there will be no more land annexed from the town. The town board would consider the application for annexation provided that the legal process addressed in the municipal annexation law is followed, be that by the petition or for annexation by the people. If the annexation is at the consent of the people and it be in the overall interest of those people wanting to be annexed, then this would be an important factor in granting that annexation. If you review the Article 17 municipal annexation law, we see the process for annexation. The town would follow the procedure for all likewise for annexation, and we would hope that the village would do the same. Any discussion you'd like to discuss with me on that?
Assessor service. So our share, you're saying, the new budget will be $34,000 of the taxes, right? That's what you're saying?
$35.64 multiplied by 96,568,000 arrives at $34,416.83.
I can go to the county and get that done for $7 a parcel per year.
Well, that may be so, sir.
I know that's so.
Well, I'm not
Well, what I'm
saying that. I'm
saying is,
saying,
I mean, you know, what I can't understand, Arnie, is this. The supervisor sits, or not, I'm sorry, the assessor sits up there and assesses for the town, right?
well, she assesses for the whole town. of
That's
Champlain,
what I
yes.
said, the town, right? And the village, it's all it does is adopt what that thing is.
You use our tax roll for your
That's
taxing,
right.
yes.
We just adopt it. And it cost us $34,000 in taxes to do that.
That's what we pay, yes, sir.
That's why I'm saying, I mean, I have found out that the county at $7 a parcel, that's a hell of a savings. That is a hell of a savings if you start to look at it.
But what I'm explaining to you though, Mayor, is that's what we pay.
Yeah.
You know, now, maybe you don't think that process is good.
I didn't say
Maybe the town
that.
would be better, the county would be better, I don't know.
I don't know that either, but, you know, it's something to look into. At $7 a thousand, that's even to the town residents, that's
That
a
may be,
savings.
yes, you're right, you're very, very true. It gets very expensive to do this.
Yeah. Dog control, you know my heartburn with dog control.
I know your problem with dog control, and I tried to explain that to you, George, but you didn't listen.
No, you did not explain it to me, Arnie. I tell you what, I wrote you a letter, I requested something good, common sense would have said, write me a letter back and tell me why. Why should I have to
Sorry,
read
George,
it?
you saw me out in the restaurant, and that's when you asked me about it.
But I read it in the North Countryman when I asked you.
I told you on that, I'm not gonna stand here and argue with George because I think you lost something there.
Well, maybe
I
I
won't
did.
argue the fact with you because probably I should have wrote it to you because then it would have been on record. And I will from now on write you on record on anything that happens. Because apparently I forget that I told you or you forget that I told you.
It's all I understand is that you didn't want to do it.
George, I explain, and I'll explain it to your board now that we're here. The reason you requested me that the town contract for a leash law from the dog warden to take over the leash law for the village of Rouses Point. I looked into it. The village of Rouses Point has a leash law. The village of Champlain has a leash law, and the town of Champlain has a leash law. The contract that we contract with Morris for is for the agriculture and markets law, which says if a dog is not licensed, that the dog catcher can come in and pick the dog up. He does the enumeration for us, and that's the extent of his job, according to the agriculture and markets. If you have a leash law, that is a village law. It has its own fines, same as the Champlain has its own fines. You each have a local law that's different on that. Now, if you have the dog warden coming in and picking up one dog in Rouses Point, and you have a dog in Champlain, there's 20 dogs in Champlain, where is there a fair equity in paying for that service for the village of Champlain versus Rouses Point or the town? It just can't work out, George. As I explained to you, if you wanted to make a town-wide leash law that could be handled by one organization, with those fines being paid by one organization and that money going back in to operate the system, then that would work. But having three local leash laws, it's not going to work.
It's the first time I knew about a town-wide one. I'll be right honest with you.
What? Town has a leash law.
I mean, a town-wide leash law.
Well, that's what I suggested you do, that one judge handle the whole thing. But you said no.
I did.
Well,
Yeah, I don't
it's
think-
fruitless to argue that point.
Yeah,
now,
you're
but
right, you're right. I don't want to argue.
Well, anyway, my next item that I have to talk about is tax rate for the area to be annexed to the town, set in your state charter. For a town resident living in the area to be annexed by the city charter, the tax rate for these residents for the year 2001 are a town rate of $3.35 a thousand and a county rate of $3.49 a thousand, for a total of town and county tax rate of $6.48 a thousand. Now, the school tax is not figured into this because it wouldn't be any different from city or village or town. For that same resident to be annexed in the city charter, they would pay a county tax rate of $5.79 and the village tax rate of $3.69. for a total of $9.48, costing that resident $2.64 a thousand more. The reason for this increase is due to the higher county tax rate of $5.79 per thousand for a village resident over the lower rate of $3.49 for a town resident. This difference is due to the town returning the unused portion of sales tax revenue from the county that they receive so they can reduce the county tax rate for that resident in the town outside Champlain. And that's why you would have...
I understand that. I understand that. But that's not saying that the village tax, or the city tax rate don't go down.
I imagine you would go down with increased assessed valuation.
Well,
But I don't... Is there another way that you could...
The income coming in from the state would be a lot more.
How much more?
I have no idea at this time. You know, we're playing with,
Yeah, but you're...
in the dark.
I'm giving you facts.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want, estimates.
We have no idea until it would happen.
Yeah, but I'm telling you what the facts are now. Yeah. Now, what I've done is I put my 2001 and my 2000 budget sheets together for you, first two sheets, which tells you what the general account is, general town outside account, and the highway general, and the highway outside, the fire protection, and the landfill monies. What those tax rates are, what they were last year, and what they are this year. To explain to you, the general tax is paid for everybody in the town of Champlain, including the village. For the general town outside, that's paid by the town outside persons only, not the village. For your highway general, that's paid by the villages and the town outside resident. Fire protection is paid for by the town outside resident. That, of course, is the contract we contract with you in Champlain for. The landfill is paid by everybody. So for that year of 2001, you get a $3.35 tax rate. And the next sheet on the 2001, you see the balance sheet. This tells you what those accounts needed, the estimated revenues, the unexpended balances on those accounts, the amount to be raised by taxes. And there again, you have the 2000 last year also. But the only thing I'm saying is, the town is not out there to take anything from you that doesn't belong to them. It's not needed. To explain to you, we have tried to change the accountability for the different departments here in the town of Champlain. In 1999, we started by having a better timesheet for the different departments so they could have more categories to charge their time to, and make it easier for us to charge it to the correct part of the budget that it should come from. Because of the many changes that have taken place in the town of Champlain, the town board has taken a new look at financial conditions. As we all know, your winters are not as bad as they used to be, so therefore if you don't have that much snow anymore, you don't have to do that much plowing. So that should reduce that highway account. This should show, quite a reduction. Like last year, there was very little snow, we did very little plowing, and that highway reduction count is shown in this year's budget. The purchase of highway equipment has changed. This is now being charged to the highway outside budget. There's more than I know that the town tends to look at, to making sure that there's a fair accountability for all the people in the town of Champlain. And I thank you, gentlemen, and ladies, for your time. If you have any questions of me, I'll try to answer them.
Thank you, Arnie. Thank you, Arnie.
Mr. Mayor, George Long, 3 Lakeview in Rouses Point. I would like to have it clarified as to the new boundaries that will be set up for the city.
Those new boundaries, let me explain something here, was, I don't want to use the right word here, I don't want to misconstrue anything here. Boundaries were set up basically looking at natural boundaries. Those boundaries are not setting in stone. Please understand that. It was just one of those things we looked at. This would be easy to do this way. The boundaries are, like I say, not set in stone. that can be changed to anything that, you know, the general public wants. Like I say, we took roads, natural boundaries, because if you start dividing property, then you gotta have surveying, you know, done, and that's the reason why it was done. Any other questions? You got till 7 o'clock, because I can't start my meeting till 7.
I'll ask a question. Suzanne Moore, the Press Republican. People have asked me, when you have your public referendum, who would get to vote?
The people that, inside those boundaries,
Suppose I own land in the boundary, but I
you
don't
have to
there.
live.
Okay.
You have to be a resident of that boundary. That's not our law, that's state law. I think we've explained that once before. You must be a resident inside that boundary. It's just like myself owning property in Champlain. And they have a referendum, I can't vote on it either because I live here.
Did you check the municipal annexation law according to that?
Well, Arnie, I'd like to answer that, and I have witnesses to this. There's people that sat in that meeting, and God bless him, he's dead and gone, but Mr. Pavel was right in that meeting, and he pulled the board, and that's when you were doing the thing on the district, the fire district. And he turned around and he said to the board, am I correct in saying that the board has agreed not to allow any more annexation? And everybody on that board said yes at that time, and there's witnesses to that.
Okay.
Okay, here to there, Arnie, you're right, because you really can't stop it.
I know it, George.
I
The board never
found
would've
out
said
afterwards. I found
that.
out
The board never
afterwards.
would have said that.
Well, I'm just telling you what was
I
said
know
in that
what's
meeting. Calvin, you were there taping that, do you remember that?
How would you pull the tape?
Can't remember if I was there or not, but I remember something along that, but everybody knows that
Well,
the town has one voice in it, and town can't stop an
That was
annexation.
all over apparently a piece of property that somebody wanted to annex. And I don't know the whole story, and I don't want to get
George.
involved in it. But I'm just saying, that was the statement that was made, and the town board agreed.
No.
Every one of them on the town board said, that's right.
I'll agree to you, that's where it came from, but it was not as you stated. That one person said there will be no more annexation. The board did not agree or go along with it. That person looked back, well, if there's a tape, I'll find it.
Anyway, here to there, I found out that that's not so.
No,
It's
because the
not.
board has no authority to say that.
Absolutely. Yep.
The
I
same
found that
thing
out
is the-
afterwards.
The voting on the proposed annexation in the charter, if you have a resident that owns land in that area,
Well, the town board can stop the annexation. I'm not sure why annexation's an
I think
issue
we're
here.
talking two different subjects here.
I'm talking annexation under the general.
You're talking
municipal law.
annexation, but I'm referring to the fact that if a person owns land in that annexed area for the charter, does he get a right to vote? Even though he does not live in that area.
We're not annexing anything. This is not an annexation.
It's expanding of the city limits
Yeah,
through
but
the
it's-
annexation process. It
No,
would
it's
fall
not
under,
it's not the annexation process, that's what I'm saying.
it doesn't follow the annexation process law?
No, it's not an annexation.
What does it follow?
It's the legislation creating the boundaries of the city,
And voting on the charter.
voting on the charter.
Does that person have the same rights as a person in the
Anybody who
annexation process?
As the lady from Press Republican, anybody votes who resides in the new city.
Who resides, but supposing I own 200 acres that's being annexed, I don't have any rights to vote if I don't live in there?
Well, I suppose in your sense, we're quibbling over phrases. We're not annexing.
Well, in the charter, I have no rights to the charter?
As a property owner,
Yeah.
you still have exactly the same property rights that you had before.
No. My question is, if I own 200 acres
Yes.
and the parcel to be encumbered in the city charter, but I do not live in that,
then
do
you
I have a
no
right to vote?
You will have no vote.
Okay.
And you would have no vote in the annexation law either.
Right. even though I own majority of the property.
If, under the annexation law, under the general municipal annexation law, as a property owner, only you can petition for annexation. The town can't do it, the village can't do it. If the property owner petitions for annexation, the annexation process starts. If the final process is the vote, if you don't live in that property, if you don't live there, even though you're the property owner and petitioned, you don't vote. We're not changing anything that way. If you do not reside in the land to be annexed, even though you own it, you don't vote.
What, can I ask Calvin Castine? There's no vote on an annexation. If somebody's annexing a block of land next door, when, there's no vote, there's no public referendum, no public vote on it.
On the land to be annexed,
A public vote?
yes.
No. There's never been. Has anybody ever witnessed a public vote on an annexed piece of property?
Never went through one, couldn't tell you.
Well, the village of Champlain annexed the,
Was
Were there-
anybody living in it? Was
somebody,
anybody living in it?
and
In the
people
property?
living in there, yeah.
Yeah.
There's no vote.
Yeah, you have, the way the process worked is the property owner has the right to petition for annexation.
Right. But there's no
Town
vote.
Yeah, okay.
Calvin, there was people living in the industrial park?
They didn't vote. Nobody voted.
No, but what I'm saying
Yeah,
is-
the people own the property, they apply to
but
be
they didn't
annexed.
live
But
there.
they didn't live there.
The Filios live there.
Wasn't that in the city, village limits, Filian's property?
No.
Not that part of it, but their house?
Well, you had the
I don't know, I
annexation
just-
of Route 11, what did you do then?
Pardon?
You had the annexation of Route 11. on
Why
the-
are we talking about, this has
South side
nothing
of
to
Route
do with an
11.
annexation. I mean, why is it even
Well,
relevant?
Right before the overpass.
Because you're saying that you vote on an annexation, that's
Because we do,
false.
you do. Article
See, I
14,
don't remember that.
I remember.
Right before the underpass?
I don't remember, I was sitting on the board, so I don't know what took place.
When Miramar was annexed and all that stuff, that,
Yeah, but there's nobody living there, Calvin. When they annexed that property, it was.
but it still didn't go to a public vote.
No.
There's no public vote on an
What he's saying
annexation.
is it wouldn't have to be if there's nobody there, nobody living there.
I think the question was mixed up, that's all. I'm satisfied with my answer. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, did I understand you correctly, when you said that it's only people in the land that they brought into the city that get the vote?
People that live on the property and and a citizen of the United States.
How about the residents of Village of Rouses Point?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, because they're,
Oh, yes.
they'll vote.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mary.
Marlene, dear. How can you arbitrarily try to bring in all these people and without first even asking them? How can this happen? Any other, he's saying it's not an annexation.
It's not.
Well, you are annexing, but I said previous annexations have all been petitioned by the people who wanted to be annexed. I haven't had one person come and say, we want this to happen. Every person has come to me and said, we don't want to be part of that. We don't want to become a city.
Then vote no. Then vote no.
Well,
Simple as that.
yeah, but you've spent all this money for what? To have it voted down no? You should have made better use of the money.
Well, there's one thing you gotta understand, and I said before, if you start to look at the village of Rouses Point, there is no more building lots. And I'm gonna ask you a simple question, is this, I sit out here in the town, and I've got this property, and all of a sudden I wanna develop it. And I say, well, why should I wanna annex to the village of Rouses Point? And pay town taxes and village taxes too. And, you know,
Well, I'd like to answer that. The Route 11 annexation that the village took, I first on the board in the village of Rouses Point, I went around soliciting those people to be annexed into the village. Their answer to me, why should I move into the village? I got your water and sewer, and I'm not going to pay you village tax. And I said, well, you're right. But then there came a time where their water and sewer system didn't work.
Yeah, and we paid dearly for it.
Yeah, so we annexed them. Then we paid for the water and sewer.
And I know-
That's what happens, George. And I say like Tom Bath, I'm speaking as a resident now. And the property that you're encumbering is much too great an area.
Like I
for
said,
you.
Arnie, it's not cut in stone.
There's been no planning behind that at all. I can see that right down the line. You should have some reason for why you
May I
want
ask you a
to encumber
question?
that territory.
May I ask Mr.
Yes.
Beal, would you be satisfied if we just incorporated just the existing village?
Would I be satisfied?
I mean, would that remove your objection if we just incorporated the existing area?
No, I'm just opening. I'm not going to commit to anything. I'm just saying that I think the area to be encumbered into the city is much too large.
Yeah,
You got more than 3,000 years of growth you can do to
I'm
get
just
that.
trying to understand what the nature of the objection is. Is it an
Well,
incorporation at any
because
cost
as Tom
or
had stated
certain
to you,
incorporation?
it's the availability of services. This board is going to go away. I'm going to go away. There's going to be new boards sitting up there. And these people are going to come and say, we want water and sewer. They're going to get it. I've seen this happen before. I've been in the business too long.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem with the
And
whole
it's going to
town.
end up costing my utility rate more money.
Isn't that the problem with the whole town right now? Is
George,
that-
there's
No,
so
I'm
many
serious.
problems there.
I mean, this whole town for hundreds of years, they had town, let's stay small, let's not move, let's not do anything. I like it the way it is. Unfortunately, liking it the way it is you stay small, you die.
You know
You
our
die.
problem here? You
You
know
die.
what? I've been around a long time and I've seen it. Our biggest problem is none of us can work together. We can't work together. For some reason, it's don't tread on my turf. If we would spend half as much time working together as we do fighting each other, you'd have a place that's 10 times better than what you got.
That's your opinion.
Well,
But if
prove me wrong.
But legally, you are together now. The town board has jurisdiction over the entire town, which includes the village. The village does not have the authority, similar authority outside the village. I mean, if somebody is going to be the moving party, it would be the town government. The town government has townwide jurisdiction. You have the control over the town government, which includes the village.
Sounds easy when you say it.
Well, it's the fact though, isn't it?
It is fact, yes. You have to have town government, you don't have to have village government, yeah. Town government is a must, that's
But
a
the-
charter,
Well, it's a must because the state, it isn't a must. because
mandated by the state.
It's not a must because it won't exist when the city's incorporated. There will be no town government. So it's not mandated.
What do you mean there'll be no town government when the city's,
There will be no town government in the city of Rouses Point.
right,
Yeah. so
but there'll
town-
still be town government.
But not in the city of Rouses
Well,
Point.
I know that. So what's that point?
Point is, what I'm saying, if you talk about cooperation, the town can do things to the village, for and to the village, that the village cannot do for the town. It's not an equal partnership. What I'm saying is the town has the best of all possible worlds. It gets to tax real property in the village and is required to provide no service for it. That's the best of all possible worlds.
Well, that's your statement of no, when you say no services,
You're not required to. What services are you required to furnish in the village of Rouses Point?
well, now you're getting to the technical aspect of
yes, I
it.
am.
But what is the proven aspect of it? What do we really do?
Well,
You know,
let's talk about
you're
what-
circumventing that
Wait a
fact.
minute, we're not gonna get in a,
Well, I don't want to argue with him, no.
Okay.
well, you
Can't
say
win.
work together?
Yeah.
Well, this is gonna be read in correspondence tonight, and I might as well read it now. It says, this day, this is a letter from you, Arnie. He said, "Dear Mayor, members, and trustees, this is a response to your letter requesting real property tax exemption for the proposed water storage tank located in the town of Champlain. This request was discussed at the last town board meeting on November 14, 2000. The town board agrees to grant a request for tax exemption for the proposed water tower. The town board would like to have a memorandum of understanding indicating that the village of Rouses Point will supply water to the town and at what rate. We're looking forward to hearing from you." I have a letter from the county that gave us a total exact tax exemption with nothing on it. I have a letter from the school board coming that's going to give us a tax exemption with nothing on it. Why this?
Well, what's
Has the
wrong?
village of Rouses Point ever refused you water? Have we?
I don't want to get into that one, George.
No? We sat right here in the meeting,
Yeah.
and you said there was no record of it, but I asked my board, and the board said yes. We went to a joint study, we were willing to do that. But when they came back and said the residents of Rouses Point would pay 75% of that, and am I right, you people who were sitting on the board here, that when that
You have that
report
in
came back,
writing? You have that in
I
writing?
don't have it in writing because I don't
No,
know
that's
it,
what
but
I
it's
thought.
part of our minutes.
Did you have it in minutes? You have that in the minutes?
She'd have to look it up.
Would
But
you
it was
please
brought
look
right
it
up,
up for me?
it
I'll
was brought up
take it
by
up.
trustee Baker, which sat on that committee and said, right here to this board, we can't sell this to the taxpayers. And stop to think about it. We couldn't.
George, I like to see that. I've asked everybody else, and nobody seems to remember it. But of course, your memory's a lot better than mine.
No, it ain't. Well, I'm just saying, have we ever refused the town of Champlain anything?
Has the town ever refused you?
I don't know. I'm just
Huh?
saying, have we?
Well, let's talk annexations. Have we ever refused the
I
village
don't
annexation?
know. I've never sat in one, Arnie.
Well, you should have looked it up before you made the
Why?
statement.
Why should I look it up? This is a new board.
The town has allowed the annexation of the Victor Pod property. That's over 200 acres, George. The town has allowed the annexation for the, who is it, the reduced housing up there, low-cost housing, Carrier Apartments. That was annexed from the town. They allowed that. Smith Street was annexed. The south side of Smith Street, that was annexed. It goes back before you even remember, George.
I know.
So I guess if the village has never refused the town and the town has never refused the village.
What's the problem?
Where's the problem?
Yeah, that's what I said.
Where do you say that we haven't gotten?
I
along?
didn't say that.
Yes, you did. You said if we worked this hard to
To get it.
get along, well, to me, if nobody's refused anybody, where haven't we got along?
Well, it dates back before your time. I'm not saying
I
this board has
agree.
done that. I'm not saying this board has done that. I'm saying that this happened in the past. When I talk, I'm talking 25 years.
It's not 25 years ago.
What? I've been at it for over 25.
No, I'm saying it's not 25 years ago, it's now.
Yes,
And if the village is
It's-
getting
it's
along
time.
and the town are getting along, then
there's more that can be
I
done.
don't understand where the statement come from that we don't
Well,
cooperate with each other.
shared services. We should have talked about shared services a long time ago. Never done it. Now, whose fault is it? I'm not saying it's your fault, and I'm not saying it's our fault. But I'm sure that there's more that we can do to reduce the cost of the taxpayers' payments.
I'm sure there probably is. And that's what this board is trying to do for this village.
That's why we want to become a city.
Okay.
We want to reduce the cost to our residents, and I think that's what we're charged to do. Now, whether or not it goes big or small,
Could I ask you one question? In all of my reading, the process for becoming a city, why did you go right from the board to the attorney and not go with the commission to look into all the pros and cons of becoming a city? Why did you bypass that committee?
that's a good question.
Was there any-
And I think Mr. Larson can answer that for you.
What committee are you talking about?
Of having a committee of residents to say, look into this.
Well,
I think we discussed this one night.
I mean, there is no procedure enacted in the law for how you incorporate a city. There is no set form as to how it is done.
No.
It is simply that the...
Isn't it a recommendation, though,
By who?
by New York State in the guidelines?
Well, there are no guidelines. Have you ever read a guide? No, you said anything you've read about incorporating a city. But I'd like to ask you, what have you read?
Well,
That's
tomorrow,
what I know.
I'll forward to your office the copies of what I read.
No, I see, seriously, because I don't, there's very little that I've ever found.
Comes off the internet through the state.
On the incorporating of the city from, what, Department of State?
Establish a commission
For what?
for the drafting of the charter.
Not, there you go, that's not what we're talking about. What you're talking about, I know those from publications you're talking about, require a charter commission, everything else. That has to do not with the incorporating a city, but rewriting a new charter for an existing city.
Well, I
It's a
think it
totally
would-
different process.
Wouldn't it work the same as
No,
a new?
because you don't even have to be a unit of local government to incorporate a city.
Okay.
This process that you're going through here tonight happens to be initiated by the Board of Trustees of the Village of Rouses Point. You do not have to have a Board of Trustees or a town board to initiate the incorporation of a city. It can simply be the residents of the area. It is not a governmental function. It does not have to be a governmental function. So you're not going to find any rules that say, villages, cities do not grow up from villages. You don't have to even be a village to have a city. It's strictly a populated area which gets incorporated. And what you're talking about is the guidelines that set forth in the municipal home rule law as to how to rewrite a charter once the city is in existence. And that's where you get your charter commissions and everything else. But that has nothing to do with a new city.
But yet, wouldn't it be a good idea to use that charter first, to look at all the pros and cons? Before hiring
We
attorney.
looked at several charters, different cities.
I just wondered why.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair question. I think a lot of people misunderstand what they're talking about is charter revision and a new charter. Charter revision is a very structured process which is designed to involve the residents of the city. That is not the case here. There is no structure, there is no law that tells you how you incorporate a city. It is the law that which tells you how to incorporate the city is the law that the legislature will enact when creating the city.
Is there any other questions?
I got a quick question. I heard rumor I hope it's just rumor, that Stony Point was not included in your proposed annex property?
That's right.
If you're going by natural boundaries, why wouldn't you include Stony Point?
We took 9B.
Why wouldn't you include Stony Point?
That's a nightmare.
So you're just looking to get what's good?
Well,
You made a statement a little while back, George.
I attended a public hearing with the town on that whole road issue out there.
Uh-huh.
Would you want that? If you were...
You're gonna
even an
isolate a little
individual,
piece of pie because it's not to your benefit, but you want to take everything else around it.
There's no way you can make that work. There's no way you can make that work out there.
So you're gonna isolate that little piece of pie of Stony Point and annex all the way around it because that's to your benefit. Now, a little while ago, you made a statement that if you don't grow, you die. What's gonna happen to the town of Champlain if you take out 40% of the taxable property?
Hey, that's the town of Champlain's
There
problem.
are several
George,
things which you can
We're a
do.
community. Let's work as a community. Let's
There are
work
some-
together.
There are several things that you can do. I mean, if what you're saying is that the town cannot function without having the village property continue, in other words, as I like to say it, and as I know the supervisor would not agree, if they can no longer exist without the village subsidy, then maybe they ought to consider merging with an adjacent town.
That's a heartless. I cannot believe that there's people on that board would agree with that. I cannot believe people who live in this community would have that attitude.
You're asking for an option, I'm giving you one.
I'm telling you, that's an awful statement to be made. It's an awful statement for a community that's lived together this long and got along just fine.
No,
All we
I'm
need to
not-
do is
I'm not
work-
saying they should. What I'm saying is that they can no longer function without the tax.
If we got a
They
problem,
can look at the option of merging with another town.
right, if we've got a problem with too many governments here, let's make one huge government. Take the whole township in. If you're looking out for what's best for the area,
There would be nothing wrong with doing that.
then let's look at that option instead of trying to pull off 40% of the property for the town and leave the rest of the town blowing in the wind. That's a heartless thing to do. And I can't believe that you 5 people would do that. Maybe he would, because he doesn't live here. Just like big corporate people and close up places like Sheridan Iron Works without batting an eye, because they don't live here. But you people do.
I still say this village does not get its value out of the taxes it pays to the town.
Then work. Then work.
200 and
Then work it
some
out.
odd thousand last year came from the village of Rouses Point to the town of Champlain.
Then work it out. Get it solved. They've already made steps. Next year's gonna be 88,000, I
It
heard.
can't be solved. The law won't allow it to be solved.
Well, if I
It has
was,
to do with the inherent structure of town and village government.
if I were sitting in your shoes, I'd say that same thing, because the longer this goes on, the better it is for you, but I think.
Why do you say that?
Getting
Because he's
paid.
getting
He's
paid.
getting a flat rate till this is done.
How much?
$38,000, you wanna know? And I'll tell you right up front. And I think it's money well spent.
Where did the $58,000 come?
58.
This is what we were told.
Is she
we spent
offering?
for the last
Are you offering?
Are you offering? I'll take it.
38.
38, and then it's will reflect that. Not 38.
78.
Well, keep going.
So how much has the village paid Mr. Larson so far?
I have no idea. We paid a couple of bills, but it will be paid when it's done.
In the total?
Whether or not it happens or not, whether the legislator turn it down or whatever happens, he still gets paid.
And
It's a
the total is
flat sum.
38,000.
He's been up here, what, 6 times, plus all the work he does at his office. And any other time that we need him to have come up, he's gonna come up to sit down with Stafford and Orloff, with the county board, and we wanted a meeting with the town board.
And it's 38,000 total.
And all included.
What is the projected time schedule for the rest
So
of the
we were hoping now, I don't know if it'll happen, to have it in the legislative, the charter in the legislative for this session, starting in January.
What we would like to do, I mean, there is, after a certain point, we sort of lose control over it, okay? We can do what we do here, but then there's a point where we're gonna present what we've done to the assemblyman and the senator, and then we sort of lose control over what, the time frame, how much time they wanna spend, you know, reviewing the work that we've given them, with the process that they go through. They'll want to talk to various state agencies, they'll want to talk to other legislative, I mean, whatever they want to do. I would assume that maybe both of them would want to have one or more public hearings up here in the area, all of which take time, but are part of the process. But, so all we can really do is say that we would like to get our draft of the legislation to the senators and the assemblymen as early in January as possible, and then, of course, urge them to, you know, act expeditiously on it, but we do sort of lose control of the time frame. And then when it actually gets put up for a vote in the legislature, you know, committee meetings, then the legislature itself, and then, you know, off to the governor. So those are things that you really have no control over.
Go ahead, Marnie.
Is it state law that you have to have a town? Or why couldn't we take the town and the 2 villages and make a big city
You
out of it?
could, perfectly fine, perfectly fine, could do
I
that.
understood that you can't operate without a town. You have
What
to have.
happens all, what do you mean, no cities have a town in it? I mean, town, you don't have to have town government. The state of New York divided the state of New York into 62 counties and 900 and some odd towns. Those are just straight lines that the county drew, you know, the state drew on a map. Cities and villages were incorporated because they were in populated areas of those political subdivisions. But they're, you know, your cities and village have no respect of county or city boundaries. Your city can cross town lines, it can cross county lines, your village can cross county lines, town lines, anything else. those are just artificial lines drawn by the state for initially administrative purposes. Villages and cities were where the population were, and they said, look, we want more cities than the town or county is willing to give us. And the town board said, you know, back many, many years ago, if you want services, you provide a method for taxing yourself. Essentially what a village or a city is, I mean, you're familiar with town government, you can consider the district, you know how districts work. You have water districts, fire districts, fire protection districts, all the things that towns have to go through to provide services. Essentially what a town, or essentially what a village and a city are multi-purpose districts. That's why you have no districts in cities or villages. They are multi-purpose districts. They have all governmental powers. Towns don't. Towns have to go to the district. But essentially, you know, if you have a fire district, it has one function. If you have a water district, it has one function. If you have, you know, police district, something else. But, you know, it has a single function. A village is essentially by function, if not by definition, a multi-purpose district. It has all the powers, all the governmental powers necessary. And taxes itself, but you still remain, on the village, you still remain part of the town. In terms, you have to pay town taxes and you get the vote for town officers. Not so in cities. You no longer pay town taxes and you don't vote for town officers. Because legally you have no, you know, there's no connection between the two. So you're essentially ending a duplication of services.
Mr. Mayor, Rodney Wright, I think the big issue here is the village of Rouses Point paying town taxes because you don't get any services. You can expand and not become a city. I'm a landowner in the village, but I chose to build my home outside of the village. Now, I do not get any benefits from the town of Champlain. I live on a state highway, but that is life. You have to take and pay for services. You pay state taxes, you pay federal taxes. What do you get from the state? But you have to take and pay for the upkeep of town government.
But it doesn't work both ways.
And I agree that the town of Champlain should be the entity here that takes over the two villages and makes one government. That's the way it should go. And I have written Senator Stafford and Chris Orloff, and I have sent out 30 letters to some of the residents that are affected by this. And I think that, you know, we're looking at 3,000 people probably involved here. We have 20 here tonight. And I think the people better get on the ball and write Stafford, write Orloff, and stop this thing. But before...
Why do you think it's bad?
I can't see any good out of it.
And you think the status quo is fine? I mean, I can tell you what I think. Let's all just take one. You think the status quo is fine, right? The
No, I'm
status
not
quo?
saying that.
Okay.
I'm not saying that. Look, I was a businessman in the village of Rouses Point for 38 years. And I have many bones that I could pick.
Sure.
So I'm not gonna pick them. I picked them.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, so if you don't think the status quo, we should say status quo, what should we do? I mean, this
I
group,
said they could expand,
but why
They don't
wouldn't
have
you
to be a
want,
city
why
to
wouldn't you
expand.
want, if you're going to expand and have the additional responsibility for serving those areas, why wouldn't you want the additional money to go with it?
Look at the addition might be what? From what? From whom?
From the state of New York, okay? From options and sales tax.
That's still not cutting blood. I mean, it's still,
But you're not getting-
cut and dry that you're gonna get any funding.
Sure you are. I'll tell you, you will get funding. I won't tell you how
Just because
much.
you're a city?
Yes. Because that's the way the law cannot treat one city different. It's an equal protection argument. They cannot treat one city differently than another. They can treat classes, that's why you have different formulas, or, you know, things are always changing, of course. But, you know, they'll aid towns one way, they'll aid counties one way, they'll aid villages one way, and they'll aid cities. All I'm saying to you is that in the past recent history of the state of New York, cities have always done significantly better than the other three. And if they decide not to treat cities well, they're going to have to treat Buffalo, Yonkers, Syracuse, Rochester, Albany, New York more poorly. That's not going to happen. So, no, what I'm saying is the mayor, this board is up here, is charged with providing services to the local government. They're in charge of, providing water, sewer, police, electric, whatever it is that they provide for. And they revolve solely, they relate primarily, or a lot of their money is received from local real property taxes. Why would you not want them, as the elected officials, to find a way to continue the level of services, increase the level of services, while controlling or decreasing the burden on the real property taxes? That's what they're doing. I mean, you should be congratulating them. That's what their job is.
See, I asked at the last meeting if they had done any cost estimates, and then nothing's ever been figured out money-wise. In any of the services or anything else, everything is left up in a question mark.
Because you don't have a predictable formula for state aid. And you used to.
I tried treating that state aid.
Yeah, you can't, right? It's not predictable, and they'll do it year by year. It's a different process. So the town board cannot make those predictions any more than the village or the city could,
No,
because of the uncertainty, okay?
No, they're taking over a road, they don't have a cost estimate for, if they need a truck or a personnel to run the truck. Because if your men are working 8 hours a day now, if they take the extra road and stuff, how are they gonna say that's the one that's doing 8 hours of work now? Is he gonna work 12 hours, is he gonna hire another person? You know, this should all have been figured out cost-wise first.
Well, I
And
suspect.
Harris, when they make a tablet, you get a cost estimate up first, you don't make a tablet, and then try to sell it for a little bit more.
I suspect that by the time you get to the point in the process here where it's up for a vote, okay, that you'll have a far more accurate picture of what's actually happening. When we know what the boundaries, well, as I say, you probably will. But this, we're really at step one here in the process of putting this together. But this is not a bad thing we're doing, okay? I mean, this is well, no, obviously there's a whole different perspective, but, and I respect what Mr. Beal is saying, I mean, the town law does not give the town board the flexibility that it would really want to be able to deal satisfactorily with villages. There are things which you cannot exempt property from. The law tells you what things you can exempt village real property from for town tax purposes. You were talking about the town, the assessor here, okay? Where does the assessor's salary come from? What part of the town budget does it come from? It's the general fund. From the town-wide general fund. The residents of the village pay for that assessor the same way as do the residents of the town. They pay a tax rate out of the general town fund. And yet, they have to turn around and then pay the assessor, pay the town additional for the assessor. They're already paying, they've already paid that assessor's salary. Same with the dog warden.
They don't do that.
You lost me there.
Okay, you pay, if the assessor's
The
salary.
assessor's salary comes out of the general fund.
A town-wide.
That's a tax rate.
Town-wide, right?
Mhm.
So the residents of the village of Rouses Point pay the town-wide tax, and they pay for that salary, right?
Yes.
Why should they pay again?
Because, what do you mean?
What do you mean we paid it again? Now, first of all, he never stated that they paid it to start with.
They pay.
He's making a figure go that
Wait
we're
a
paying
minute,
X
we're getting
number
an
of
argument
dollars
here.
and getting nothing.
I think you
You arguing?
are.
We're not gonna argue here.
I
think Mr. Larson missed something there, because
Yeah.
I thought you said that you bought the
No,
town
no,
assessor
he-
roll.
No.
You don't know how the process works.
Well, it's different in different localities. But I thought what you said is that you're paying for the town assessment roll, that you pay the town assessment.
No.
I know what Arnie said in that.
Okay.
That's fair equity.
Okay.
Is there any other questions? Because I need to close this and go into my regular session.
I'd just like to know if I can get the opinion of each board member, how they feel about the city charter and becoming a city. Each person.
All right? It's up to the board if they want to give their opinion.
If I could say something else too.
Yep, sure.
Okay. I came on the village board somewhat through this process, okay? And I had no opinions as to where I sat on incorporating the city of Rouses Point. And I've listened to a lot of people. Unfortunately, some people that I should have listened to haven't come to see me. Okay? At this point, I hope that'll change, because I want to hear from people. I have an open mind on the whole issue at this point. But I've got to tell you something. I came in here tonight, and I got uncomfortable. And the reason I got and I looked around, and I saw some other people that were uncomfortable. Okay? And the reason they were uncomfortable was not because of what we were here for, but because of what we were here for didn't happen. Okay? I don't think Mr. Larson is a heartless man. I don't think Mr. Beal's a heartless man. I don't think Mr. Rivers is a heartless man. I don't even think Calvin's a heartless man. Okay? But we got off task. We got off task. We should be dealing with issues here, not people. Okay? Someday, we're going to have a vote on this whole issue. All right? At that time, I am going to do what I think is going to benefit the people that I have to represent most. All right? I don't know what that is yet. I have questioned anybody that has been to the meetings with Mr. Larson. I have questioned him as to the size of the new city, as of the pros and cons of becoming a city, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I haven't made up my mind. I will make up my mind at some point. But I would hope that people from the town, Arnie, and from the village of Rouses Point will talk with me and show their feelings to me. But not come and sit down and have a, what kind of a contest. Because we're not going to solve anything if we do that. Nothing is going to get solved if we do that. Okay? We got to talk with each other and not try to, George say something to get one up on Arnie, or Arnie say something to get one up on George. Doesn't do a damn bit of good. We lose. We all lose when that's happened. And that's what happened here tonight. We lost. Okay? All of us lost. But we still got a chance to get back on track. Okay? And see if this thing can work. Maybe we're going to end up with the city of Champlain someday. Who knows? Okay? But I think we've got to research the things through with using common sense, if nothing else. That's where I have to stay, okay, at this point.
Ally?
Well, I'm willing to go along with it as far as we can see what's happening and let the people decide. And if you don't want it, you don't have to vote for it. But let us go and see what we can do. I'm not saying I'm telling you what to do, but I think, in all fairness, let's work together and let's see what we can do.
Elaine?
First of all, I'd like to thank people who have come this evening and who have come to our other meetings, because it's through the exchange of ideas that we as board members can have a better idea of your feelings. I sit here primarily and I listen. Hopefully I listen to you well, and hopefully my ears are working so that I can hear what you're saying. I have heard a variety of opinions. I've heard a variety of opinions here tonight. I've heard a variety of opinions from people with whom I've spoke. Based on those opinions that I have heard, that I'm hearing here tonight and that I'll hear in the future, I will make my decision. But my decision will be based upon what is in the best interest of the residents whom I serve. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Like I said, when we started out this, it seemed like a very positive thing, and I guess I figured that I was part of this village, and I wanted to better this village, and that's why we expanded our boundaries or whatever, or so we thought. Sitting through all these meetings, and we've had a couple of public hearings, I figured that we would get more people, more input, because I'm here to serve the people. And I mean, I don't want to make a decision based on me. I'm doing like Elaine. I'm sitting here and I'm listening, and I've got mixed feelings about the size of it, or, you know, I mean, I'm looking at the people, and the only negative thing that I'm getting out of this crowd and out of the other crowd is the size of the city. I'd like to take a poll right now. I mean, you don't have to participate if you don't want to. I'd like to know how many people would object to this city if it was just in the village boundaries right now. You know, I mean, you know, and we're looking at 4 or 5 people. There's 2,500 people in this village. That's what we're trying to get at. We need the input of all these people. If we need telephone calls, letters, whatever. More participation in these open meetings. We're trying to serve people. We're not here to try to hurt people. We're trying to serve people the best way we can. And I think that we went in the direction that we thought would help the people. And I still believe that's the way it is. I mean, if the boundaries need to be lessened, then so be it. But I still think the city needs to go through.
George, could I just ask for clarification of something? From what I understand, the board already voted to go forward with the city. Is there another vote of the board?
I'm not sure of that at this point, Suzanne. I just said, we voted.
We voted to pay Mr. Larson.
We voted to hire Mr. Larson. When I brought it up to the board, I said, do you want to continue? If you do, it's going to cost you money. Do we want to go forward? And the board voted unanimously to go forward. And that's where we're at.
Can I ask Mr. Larson, is there a vote by the trustees to actually?
Well, I mean, there are some, once again, there's gonna come a point in time, where where the Board of Trustees of the Village of Rouses Point is going to have to go to the state legislature and pass some kind of a resolution authorizing them to go ahead and do it, or they won't. It's got nothing to do with state law, that's got to do with the rules of the Senate and the Assembly. They're going to want to have a request from the Board of Trustees to move forward with legislation, which will be in the form of a resolution.
I guess I'm the last one. I'm the opinion. Basically, I guess it was my idea to start with. I had talked to several people in the state, you know, and there have been, over the years, several attempts made throughout the state to make cities. Not all of them failed, contrary to popular belief, but none of them happened for various reasons. Basically, most of the attempts were made were village against town. Villages not satisfied the way things were going. And when it got down to the bottom line, the town sort of bent, or the village got what they wanted out of it, and everything was dropped. My vision is not that. My vision is that I took a look this past year, at what's happening in this village. And I started to look in the price of property and in the building lots that we have left in this village. And we're getting to the point that we don't have any. There's an industrial park right down here that has sat idle for I don't know how many years, and I don't know the answer to that one. I don't know if that will ever get developed. I have no idea. I wasn't involved when it was brought in here, but it sits there idle. And to me, that's not right. When I see another industrial park go up in Champlain, and all kinds of things go up there, and I say, it's sitting here with services, yet why can't we sell it? I understand now, talking to several people, all the underlying and the legalities there. So I don't know if that will ever be said. Homes. Take a look at the south end of this village. In the past 2 years, what has happened? The lots are being used up faster than I ever anticipated, ever seen. My thoughts and processes and what I see is like a corporation. This is a corporation. And if corporations don't grow, they die. And I think that's very evident what's happening in the country today. There's more mergers, there's more everything with corporations. The corporations have to grow, and we're no different than any corporation. We have to grow. And that's the reason why I started this process, the main reason. The other reason is, of course, is tax dollars. I think that we can better use the tax dollars within the village. I think that this village does real fine with the services that it provides. Electrical, water, and sewer. I don't hear too many residents complaining about the systems. And our public works crew, as small as it is, does a fine job for all residents. It doesn't matter. And we've gone above and beyond the call of duty. I think we can improve on that. I would like to see, one of my dreams is to see Route 11 developed. And I think if water and sewer was on Route 11, there would be a gold mine. It would spin off to everybody. You get in some, maybe some major industries. Who knows? But you don't know until you try. That's my statement. With that, I would have to close this public hearing and get on to the regular business of the meeting. And we're closed at a 7:17. I open the meeting to any comment from the public.
Thank you very much.
No comments from the public, I'll close it this time. Minutes of the previous meeting?
See you later, alligator.
Make a motion, we accept.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, George.
All have copies.
Make a motion, we accept the minutes as written.
Second?
Got a motion made, second, any discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor, vote by using sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Bills. Copy of the bills. Is there any additions, deletions? Thank you, sir.
I make a motion, we pay.
Second.
The motion made, second, any discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor, vote by using sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Correspondence.
The first piece of correspondence we have is from the town of Champlain, but you previously read that, so I don't think it's necessary that I read it again unless you want it. Regarding the tax exemption. Okay. Second piece of correspondence is from the planning board, town of Champlain, to Mayor Rivers. The planning board at their October 11th, 2000 meeting approved your application for a special use permit to erect a water tower on property located adjacent to Academy Street. That same evening, the zoning board of appeals approved your application for a 100-foot variance to the height of the tower.
Thank you.
We also have a resolution which was passed by the county board of legislature. It's granting the village of Rouses Point a real property tax exemption for municipal water tower to be constructed in the town of Champlain. This was passed at regular session on December 13th, 2000. That's the extent of the correspondence.
Report of mayor committees. I have a discussion on the mayor trustees. On the 4th of July, you all have a copy of the minutes of the meeting, the 4th of July. That took place on the 11th. Unfortunately, It was sent out to several organizations. Only one organization, or two organizations attended the meeting. I don't know where to go with it from here. According to the minutes, the fire department's willing to do certain things, but they're all money-making things. They're not interested in hosting of the parade part of it. I'm just afraid that if somebody doesn't come forward as the chairman of this parade, get this parade put together, and it's got to be done very shortly. You can't wait. We may be at a point where it'll be a dead issue.
Now, George, am I at the understanding that just for the parade, is it just for the parade it costs $12,000 to $13,000?
Oh, yes.
The parade and the fireworks?
Yes, sir. And you don't get much for fireworks at that.
No.
I mean, you got to, we put in last year $5,500 in that, the village did. Well, that committee had to go out and raise the rest of the money. They put on a raffle or whatever. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work for that committee to do. To get that money to put the parade on.
Is there any way we can increase our support of the parade activities?
I think that that's exactly what we need right now, is for them to know that we're in support of what's going to be happening and that we're willing to commit additional financial support to
I guess
them.
if it wasn't such a burden on people, we'd probably get more volunteers.
I think we might do. It's a heck of a lot of work, and you know what's happened to, well, I use Mike's name, Mike O'Brien's name, and that guy busts, and
Yeah.
they want to know that we're in support of them, I think.
I know last year I asked for $7,000 for the parade. The budget officer decided that that was not a viable request. He had his reasons. Well, maybe this year we can talk about, doing something like that.
Now, in the minutes from the meeting they talked about shortening the celebration to maybe 2 days.
Yeah.
Well, maybe 3 days, Friday evening through whatever would be.
I guess that's really not, I mean, from looking at this letter, that's not really,
No, they don't really want.
that's not really an issue.
No, but
The
it
big
would
issue
be-
is raising money for the parade and the fireworks.
It has been an issue, though, in some of the people that have had to do all the work
Right.
over the years. Many of us have been
Seems like
part
the
of
last,
that group.
right, the last few years, they just let the carnival have their,
And I don't think
have
that's
whatever
bad,
it
I don't
is.
think that's necessarily a bad thing.
no, I don't either. I mean,
He's
if they
getting
come in-
one.
If
If
they
we
come
can
in,
get
and-
decent-
yeah, if they come in and provide a service for us, I mean, I don't have any problem them not donating money to us or us taking part of it.
We're not in the business of wanting to make money on it, eh?
No, that's-
It's
and
the
they-
people in town
and they
who want
are.
to make the money on it.
And they are.
They are.
Well, the sad thing here is that the businesses that make the money, you don't see them. I'm sorry, you just don't see them. I mean, I can go way back, I was general chairman of that thing 3 years in a row. And it's no picnic to put it on. And I can remember we used to put the paper out, and we used to go to the businesses, and I remember one year very vividly. We had a beer tent at the time, and one business sold more beer than we did at beer tent. And we asked for a $10 ad in the paper, and he went ballistic.
Well, I think there were some good suggestions as to things.
I think they had a healthy meeting, what I could see.
I think we should encourage them to go forth and send a letter back again to the people that were sent letters last time, George, and have a meeting early in January, right after the holidays. And if you don't mind, I'd like to make a motion that we increase the amount of money that we would support the 4th of July celebration from $5,500 to $8,000.
I'll second that. I don't think that's a very good idea.
I didn't think you would.
main reason it's not a very good idea is, you're in that fine line there about whether or not you're just shelling out money and you're not really benefiting the taxpayers. In the past audits, the state controller's office has questioned some of the expenditures in regards to that. And, you know, it seems to me you could use that money better for something else and just have a party one day.
Let's put it this way, because you're mark straight fireworks.
Right now, in this year's budget, you have $5,500 spent towards that celebration. That does not include the cost of manpower that the village shelled out. It does not
I know that.
include the cost of free electricity the village shelled out. It doesn't include the cost of cleanup, in regards to trash removal. I could go on and on.
I understand that, Arsen, but if it was earmarked for a specific thing, say fireworks.
Because you're really, when you
Well,
start.
when I say that, the city of Plattsburgh spends about 20,000 and nobody says anything.
The city of Plattsburgh is not spending $20,000. That $20,000 is being donated by the businesses throughout the community. The city of Plattsburgh does not spend one dime out of their budget for fireworks. Like work.
Okay, I learned something tonight.
That's the difference there. That's one of the reasons why they go, well, gee, the city of Plattsburgh's fireworks a lot better than ours. Well, the village is actually paying $4,000 for fireworks. The city of Plattsburgh is raising $20,000 donated revenue. What you need to do is you need to get some sponsors to increase that budget, put towards that, if you want better fireworks.
I'd agree with that, Arsen, but has this issue been addressed with the auditors?
Yes, it has.
The 4th of July had?
Yes.
Was the first I've heard of it. Right now,
It has.
2 minutes ago.
And the higher that dollar amount gets in the budget, the more it's going to be picked on too.
And what did they say?
There's a fine line there. Basically, you're taking that money and throwing the celebration, and it's not benefiting the taxpayers. You know, and I've kind of got away with it, saying, well, this is our publicity fund. You know, we're trying to promote tourism in the community.
And would they react to that?
Well, we'll turn the cheek. We'll turn our cheek. I don't think that's the proper way of solving the problem. Just to go ahead and put a line item in the budget, $10,000. That's not the right way to do it.
Well, I think we're at a point
And I understand.
in Rouses Point right now, whereas we have got to do some things that are going to make us look good. Okay, whether we remain a town, a village, or if we become a city, or become whatever it is happens to us, I think that we've got to dress this place up, whether it's by having fireworks or making the place look better downtown or whatever. I think we've got to do something, whether it comes out of those kinds of funds or if we can solicit it. Now, I understand that there is one major business in town that is willing to come forth with some money to help us out.
Yeah, they have the...
Okay, but I would like to have the committee and those people that are interested in supporting this thing and willing to go out and bust for us, I want them to know that we are supporting them. If it means a few more dollars for right now until we can do something else, then I'll stick with it. Maybe the rest of you guys won't, I don't know. But,
Well, I still have a motion on the floor and seconded. Any more discussion?
I guess I wouldn't have problem supporting that motion as long as it was legal according to our treasurer. And come budget time, we could adjust it one way or the other.
why don't we change the words up to?
Your motion, just like you can
I'll
do
change
whatever you like.
the words up to instead of 8,000. Up to 8,000.
You can do that, though. You can change it anytime you want.
Yeah,
I mean, we all know the tentative budget has to be out by March 20th. You know, you
But
could
it-
have a new board, and they could say, okay, well, these guys want $8,000, but we don't agree with that. They could put it back down in budget.
Absolutely.
I agree.
You know, so,
Absolutely.
But I'd also like to have you talk with whoever it is that we might be accountable toward, okay? Our Senate and see just what that fine line is, okay? I don't want to cross over with the auditors.
Okay.
But I do think that we've got to do something more to support.
Can we ask the auditors if there's another route that we could take? I don't know. Or ask somebody, I don't know, in the state system somewhere.
I'm not sure that they would give you an answer.
Well, I think we've been given the answer, and the answer is to get the donations from other than the taxpayers.
And I think we should do that. But in the meantime, I'd like to make sure that we are supporting the people
Continue
that
our
really work for
celebration
us.
because
Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion, vote by using sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, now you amended
Thank you.
that motion to say up to
Up to.
8,000.
Right. And I want, like I asked Arsen to do some digging to see.
I have one other thing on my agenda, it's not on the agenda that I want to bring up. With the closing of the Bank of the Grand Union, there have been several people that sort of think that the village board should be involved in this. And you know, we can't stop people from coming or going. But it's not without a heavy heart that these things happen. And it's not that we just sat on our hands. This board has tried very diligently to seek alternatives. I talked to the owner of the property on the phone, and he assured me that he had people interested in coming in and opening a store. That's all he said. I also checked into, because of time, you know, he may not see a store here for a couple of months. I don't know. I don't know that. I don't have those answers. But I checked into the county cart system to see if we could get extra runs on to Champlain, especially for the seniors. This is the answer I got from the cart system. The following is the current service between Rouses Point and Champlain. There is a possibility of adding one additional route between 12:15 and 1:45, but is somewhat limited due to the lack of availability of vehicles. Now, I have not called this man to discuss this any further, but the county planner had called the office and left a message that it did not look good. This week I will try to follow up on this. I don't know if one additional route, one additional trip would help. But I had an idea, and I ran by item that I would like to have, you know, like an hourly or 2-hourly service, especially on Tuesdays, between Champlain and Rouses Point. And they absolutely said, no, this cannot be done. So, with that, that's all I have to say on that subject. Trustee Moore.
I have a report on Public Works. To date, by Mr. Clark, snow removal, plowing and sanding and maintenance throughout the village. The electric department is reading meters, miscellaneous repairs into the system and repairs of street lights. And Central Garage is working on equipment regularly. And I'd like to ask Ferris to give us a report on the library.
Okay, on the library steps, we're still waiting for the treads to arrive, and there's been some correspondence with the contractor regarding what they'll do in the spring to finish cleaning up and touch up, but we're just waiting for the treads.
Thank you very much. Well, that's all I have. Thank you, Trustee Moore. Trustee Dutra.
I only have one item on my agenda, and then there's another item I wish to discuss. The item on my agenda is regarding an update on the sparkler system. Doug, can you assist us there?
The local technician from Virgins, Vermont is in town and made some preliminary repairs to the sparker. There are additional parts that are needed. He's coordinating with the parent company in Canada to get those parts, and so the repair is ongoing.
And the other item I'd like to discuss regards the letter that we received from the town of Champlain indicating that they would probably not give us the tax exempt status on the water tank site. Is the board of the persuasion at this time that we might want to consider site number 2?
When I read that letter, I wasn't sure if that was, we're not going to give you the exemption without, or if it was, let's talk about this kind of thing. And you know, I don't know how definite that was.
Well, the problem, John, as I see it, is we really can't wait a whole lot longer on this water tower. We've got to get started, we've got to get plans drawn up, we've got to get bids out. They're looking for some type of an agreement as far as rate. I believe that we have sat down with the town on other occasions and have not been able to come to an agreement. I would like to be able to come to an agreement, but up to this point in time, we have not done that. And I don't know that the situation we find ourselves in at this point, we can afford to spare that time.
Doug, how much time do we got?
Lane is right on. Time is of the essence here because we're looking to do drilling and we are preparing RFPs for drillers to drill for both the water storage tank project and the sewer projects. We know where the sewer is going, but the water storage tank, we've got to pick a site, or we spend more money and drill at both sites. In terms of timing, we need to finalize our plans so we can get approval, get our financing in order, so we can have spring construction. So your point is very well taken. We don't have a lot of time.
We don't have a month? And I don't want to...
No, we don't.
Okay.
John, let me put it this way. Let's write a letter to the town board, period. Bottom line is, we cannot change what the ordinance says. The ordinance says any water sold outside this village limits is double the rate. And we can't change, I mean, we can change that, but what I'm saying is that, is it fair now that we say to the town board, you can have water at this, and John Doe out of here for years has been paying double the rate? You see what I'm saying? And I'm not I'm not in total agreement with the double rate issue. That was done before I was on this board. But here or there, there's a purpose for it.
I guess I'm not so much concerned with that, George, is that, I don't know, I mean, that's kind of a vague letter saying we want water. I mean,
We've never denied them.
how much water do they want? I mean, we don't want, we're putting a 2 million gallon tank up because we're out of regulations right now and we need this
Yeah.
in order to get back into regulations. If they want 1 million gallons of water a day or whatever, we're gonna be in the same boat that we're in now.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where I have
I'm sorry.
more of a...
I just wanted to clarify to the board and to the people of the town of Champlain that the water code does say that double the rate is to be paid by outside users. And we did this study a couple of years ago that showed that in the North Country and in the country, that is standard. That is nothing special, that is standard. And also I'd like to point out that the study also showed that the village of Rouses Point has an extremely favorable water rate. And so if you're paying double an extremely favorable water rate, you are still paying a very low amount for your water. 2 times 0 equals 0. We don't pay 0 for our water, but because we have a large industrial user in this community, we receive a very favorable rate. Even if you pay double, it is still excellent. And that's got to be remembered. They don't get hung up on the word double or 2 times. It's a pittance compared to other communities.
But this board or previous boards, I don't think has ever refused water to anybody that I know of. I mean, Champlain Plastics comes in here and they're outside the village. They got water. What I'm saying is that I just don't think that was the right thing to say to us.
I'd still like to know what the real intent was, and if that is what it is, then I think we got to move forward.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we should
In a couple of days, know
address
something.
one way or the other. I mean, if we know by the next meeting.
Is the next meeting January 2nd?
Yeah.
Yes.
If we
I
can
mean, we're not
make a
gonna really
decision
do
on
anything over
January
the
2nd, I'll hold off on the drilling quotes because we need to know which way we're going, or we just drill both locations. I mean, that's it. That's the drilling the tank location for subsurface information for foundation purposes. But also, we need to drill the street routes where we're gonna be doing the piping. And so we'll drill both streets. Now, we're paying more, or we can wait, but the longer we wait.
You just can't keep putting this off. Every time you lose a month, that's 3 months down the road. You're talking a $3 million project here. Every time you take a month out of here, now you're putting that farther, you're putting it down the road that much farther. We looked at getting this thing up and running this spring and get started on the tank and this pipeline. If you take another month, you will not be started by June. Am I right or am I wrong?
We're pushing it.
We're pushing. I mean,
If we can make a decision January 2nd, we can live with that, because we still get the drilling done.
Well,
But not January 16th.
Can we do this? Can we say this? Can we say that we call the town of Champlain tomorrow, we get a clarification that if they won't give it to us, our laws stand the way they are, that's the way it's gonna be, and if they won't give us the tax exemption at that, we go to the alternate site.
Go for it.
Does everybody agree
Exactly.
on that?
Exactly.
If tomorrow
One day.
they say, we don't agree, we won't give you the tax exemption with the current laws, then we go to the alternate site.
I mean, we'll work together, this is not working together.
I would make one suggestion, that the answer that we get tomorrow is in writing, not a verbal answer.
And then would you need a motion to that effect?
His motion can work the way he said it, but it should be a written answer.
A written
I would like a written answer from
clarification
the
of
town
that
of
letter.
Champlain.
Because I don't want it to be a verbal explanation to me, where I want it a written explanation to the board.
It seems to get out of hand when you get verbals.
That's correct.
I point out, they meet for their end of the year on the 27th. So if you give them until next week, they could give you a board answer, not one person's answer.
Doug, is there a way you can go ahead and talk with the people that are going to be doing the drilling with a bid that would be for either site?
Yeah, I think we can do that. We can ask for prices for both scenarios, and then we can delete the scenario.
Whatever one.
Yeah.
Delete whatever one, and they could start doing their
They
drilling
can
if they
start
have to
on the sewer project and do the
So
water last.
we're moving forward.
That sounds like a good idea. All right.
So are we still calling tomorrow?
Yeah, I think so.
Call, and
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
if they can get us a board answer before the 27th, that would be great. I mean, if they could call the board members and ask them, this is, we have to stay within our laws. Is this acceptable for the tax exemption?
The notes behind this letter, they have clarification that we need.
Basically, they might have made a decision before with this letter. I mean, we need a clarification on it, yes.
That's a motion, I'll second.
The motion made second. Any other discussion? There be no discussion. All those in favor, vote by the use of sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried. Thank you, Trustee Dupra. Trustee Menard.
One item on my agenda, I'd like to authorize the clerk to publish legal notice for a public hearing for the zoning board of appeals for a special use variance.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? There being no discussion, all those in favor, vote by use of sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
And I'd just like to say one thing, being the holiday season, I wish everybody Merry Christmas and Happy New Year.
My last statement, you just took it.
And thank everyone for their support.
Trustee Huckrow.
Just a very
Thank you,
pleasant,
Trustee Menard.
just a very pleasant opportunity to repeat what Dale has said. Wish everyone in the village a very pleasant holiday season.
Is that it?
That's it.
Okay, listen. Well, the mayor wishes to extend holiday greetings, especially to my board, which has been a pleasure to work with all year. To my staff, the staff of the village, which has done an outstanding job this year, and to the residents of this village. I hope you have a safe and glorious holiday season. With that, I want adjournment. No, except got the rest of the board. Trustee,
Clerk.
Madam Clerk. I'm sorry.
Your wishes are very nice, and I extend my wishes to everyone in the village. Now I'll give you some bad news. Our health insurance rates for the village are going up 17.4%. We have the rates. It's a very, very hefty raise. I have the figures in front of me, and I will put them in your box, but it's also something we're going to have to look at budget time. The second thing I have is today I received notice from the Power Authority that they are including us this year in the tree power program. They have raised the prices of the trees, and I need to know if the board wants to participate.
Do we need to do that tonight?
Yes, because I have to have this into them by February. It doesn't give me much time to get orders from the people in the village.
Okay.
All I need to know is, do you want to participate?
I would agree that we participate, because we tried to participate last year, but we were unable to do so.
Correct. I think I gave everybody a copy of this. You will notice that the prices of the trees have raised a lot.
Yeah, considerably.
So, I mean, I don't want to make a profit on it, but I also don't want to run in the hole either. So, I would suggest that, you know, we charge what we're being charged. Everybody's agreeable with that.
Did you see the price on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
$49, I think it is for the...
They're probably ice storm proof now.
No, don't listen. There's no guarantee on these trees. If they die, you must have planted them wrong. I cannot give new ones when they die. But if the board wants to, then I will notify them tomorrow that we will
I
participate.
need a motion.
And also, let me take this opportunity to ask everyone in the village who wants to buy a tree to please call me at the village office. My extension is 310. Tell me what they'd like for a tree.
So we're looking at $50 per tree, basically.
We're looking at,
Depending on
for
what
$50, we get 2 trees. It's buy one, get one. So it would be $25 a piece.
$25 a tree, just so that
So everyone would know.
everyone knows. Which is still a fairly reasonable amount.
Yes, much cheaper than the forest.
They are nice trees.
Yes.
Have a motion?
Yes. You made the motion, I'll second.
Got a motion made and second. Any more discussion? There being no more discussion, all those in favor, vote by the use of sign of aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carried.
Thank
That's
you.
it.
That's it.
Arsen.
I just want to report to the board that the other day I had spoke to, and I'm not going to pronounce this guy's name, like Richard DiFanelio or something like that. He's the head person over at the state controller's office in the Glens Falls region. I spoke to him regarding our audit that we had this past spring. We haven't received any kind of report or anything. And he wanted to tell me, he told me over the phone that they came to the conclusion that the problems that we are having now and back then that they saw were due to our computer system, and that it wasn't in the best interest of the village or the state controller's office to criticize the village in regards to that matter. So he informed me that we will not receive a written report on the audit we had last spring. So I reported.
At least there's no negatives. Is that it? Thank you, Bobby. Doug? Oh, good. I open the meeting to the public. Anybody wishing to address the board this time?
Yeah, one quick thing, Arsen's right, the city of Plattsburgh doesn't spend any money on the fireworks, but they do have a budget for the Mayor's Cup, for the 4th of July, and for the Battle of Plattsburgh. So you might want to talk to them to see how they funnel that money through, and
Thank you very much.
They do have money to spend in that area.
If they could do that, maybe we can. Thank you. Appreciate that. Anybody else want to address the board? Good.
Make a motion for adjournment?
Motion made, seconded. All those in favor? Those in